as we move along through the career and leaders are promoted and they start to have their own skill set and they know what they're confident in, they know how to speak to a room, they know what projects they're leading, there comes a time in that process where it's not going to serve me or them to spoon feed the success to them.
Welcome to the Leadership Spotlight podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Swan, Principal Consultant with Peridot Circle Consulting. In this podcast, we explore personal leadership journeys and transformations with impactful, innovative, and talented leaders. Leading the interview today is Linda Linfield, founder and principal consultant with Peridot Circle Consulting. Linda specializes in executive leadership and leadership team development. With decades of high-level leadership coaching, Linda helps leaders and aspiring leaders extend their wisdom to achieve career breakthroughs at the top level of organizations. We have the pleasure today to talk with Natalie Atwood. Natalie is the Chief Human Resources Officer at bswift, with more than 15 years of executive leadership experience in human resources at high-growth, top-performing preferred employers such as bswift, Health Equity, and Breeze Airways. She is at the top of her field. Natalie was named one of Utah's top HR professionals by Utah Business Magazine in 2020 and continues to achieve impressive results with her successful approaches to attracting, developing, and retaining top talent in a competitive market. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thanks for joining us, Natalie. We're so excited to have you here. Both Nikki and I have had experiences with you at earlier times of our careers and have watched your growth trajectory and the things you've been able to accomplish with and through other people. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today is you have had a non-traditional growth trajectory in your own life. Like, you started out in one area and now you're in human resources. Can you tell us a little bit about how that non-linear path unfolded for you?
Yeah, I would love to share a little bit about that. I'll first start off by saying, if someone asked me 25 years ago if I thought I would work in HR, or what I like to call people organizations, if someone would have asked me that, I would have said, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to do that. HR scares me. They fire people. They're not very fun, and they always tell me no. So that was my mindset, clear back many, many years ago. But when I started out in my career, I started at American Express, and I was fascinated by the financial markets and fascinated by operations. Once I joined that organization, it wasn't long after that my passion for people and interacting with others and learning and being asking for more and wanting to learn more, it was noticed by senior leaders. And I was put on a track to be a fast track to leadership. And so I spent a fair amount of time leading teams in operations. And in fact, Nikki, I was leading an operation team when I met you. And I loved operations. I loved solving problems. I loved working with people. I loved developing people. All of that is something that was very natural to me. Somebody told me many, many years ago, Natalie, one of the best things you can do for your career is have a mentor, and have a mentor that's at least 2 levels above you across the organization. And I have always followed that. My first mentor taught me about building relationships, knowing people's names, getting to know as many people as you can, saying yes to as many things as I could at the time, and being open because opportunity would show up. And I just continued to do that. And one day I was leading the operation side of an organization, and I was approached about stepping into the HR role. And I initially said, no, I don't think I don't have any experience with that. And the prior CPO at the time, she was a huge fan. She had so much faith in me. She said, you could do this. You could do it well. You have a natural ability. I think you should try it. And I thought, I remembered what my first mentor said, be open to the opportunity. And I said yes. And I dove in, and I continued to learn and advance and grow and build as I went along. So it's been a great journey. It's been a great journey.
So I love it's like I even got chills on that, Natalie, because there's so many things you said in there. I'm just going to unpack it just a bit. One is that you found a mentor who had already walked the path that you wanted to walk, and you chose someone who was invested in your growth and development, not just a name, not just a figurehead, but someone who saw the potential in you and who's really willing to give you their best advice. And then when they gave you their best advice, like saying yes and building relationships, and what I heard underneath the building relationships is that not just relationships with people in power, relationships across the organization, as many solid relationships as you could, and practice learning people's names and understanding them, getting to know them as people. And then what differentiated your journey from many of the journeys that we sometimes hear about is that you took the advice and you just leaned into it, no matter how hard it was, or even though you didn't quite know what you were doing or how to do it, you just leaned into it and starting getting success. And your mentor helped you, but you also took the weight of the learning and the development on yourself and leaned in. And even when it was hard to say yes, you remembered the counsel and you said yes if you could. So valuable in your career trajectory, and also to those who really aspire to achieve leadership positions. One of the things that happens to us as we say yes and we get higher levels of responsibility, we kind of build a reputation based on our ability to get things done, right? And many of our aspiring leaders and people who are newly promoted to new positions, one of their biggest struggles is letting go of things that they did so well in a previous iteration of their career. And they know that their promotions have been because of the things they've done well. And now they're at this new level and they don't know how to let go. They don't know how to make the transition from, I'll say do or be, like get stuff done, be in the trenches with everyone, and operating at their new level. So can you share a little bit about how you process that? Like, no one's perfect at it, right? We kind of find our way through. What were some of the key things that helped you, and what did you learn? How did you do it?
That is a really great question, Linda, and I'm smiling because that was one of my first lessons. I took a lot of pride in quick responses and beating deadlines and having a really great product. I got so much satisfaction in that as an individual contributor. And as the career changes and you get promoted and you have new responsibilities, your schedule gets busier, and the projects and the things that you took pride in previously, you can't do all of that as well. So learning the art of delegation was something that was very challenging for me to learn. I will say I failed at it a few times. And I looked at the areas where, oh, I really should have handed this off, and allowed what I saw very clearly as I was failing my way to success. What I saw was I was holding back another opportunity for someone else to learn and for them to develop, have the pride of the quick responses and doing the project. I was robbing them of that opportunity. And so when I saw it through those eyes, then I realized delegation and committees and involving as many team members as I can to provide for each and every one of them an opportunity to take on a project, a task, a presentation, speaking to executives, things that they have never had the opportunity to do. I was able to develop the team in a way that built my team up around me. And now I would say today, they're much better at most of this than I am. So,
That's a
So
big
that,
success.
yeah, that is. It sounds like delegation for you, where you had your breakthrough, was when you realized that the opportunities that you held for yourself, the anything you held for yourself because of pride of ownership, um, meant that there was someone else who didn't get to learn how to do that thing, right?
mm-hmm,
And so
mm-hmm,
they were reliant on you, and you sort of became, if you think about it like a funnel, like everything had to funnel through you.
mm-hmm,
Then you did some work internally about saying, okay, if I think about this differently, if I think about this from the perspective of the other person's growth, I can open myself up and I can delegate. A lot of times people think delegation is giving people the terrible jobs, the things you don't want to do, and so that you can do the cherry picking, and you can work on only the things you like to do. What do you think about that?
well, I'm chuckling a bit. How I look at that is when there are a list of things, and I have a list of probably 23 items right now this month in January with my current role. I intentionally take the things that I know are not going to be appealing to others, the hard stuff. I take that. That's my job as the leader. That is my job. I know what my team is good at, who's got the passions and the talents to do. We all kind of uh, lean towards certain aspects of our roles. And I know my team well enough to know who's got what passion. I I go back to them and we talk about it. Do you want to do this? Do you want to learn something different? Here's what's on my list. Here's what I'm going to do for you to clear up space so that you've got opportunity to do this. So
Uh-huh.
when I look at leadership, I work for them. I'm not their leader telling them what they need to do. I work for them, if that makes any sense. Like I'm taking
Uh-huh.
things off
That's
their
beautiful.
plate to make their job, their life easier. I want them to shine. I want them to rise up and have all the opportunities that I have been given. And so I take the stuff that's hard. That's how I
Okay.
see my job. Removing barriers is part
Mm-hmm.
of my role as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that's how I
And
look
that's
at
hard
it.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so great. That's so great, and it's a different perspective from the perspective
Mhm.
that many, even people who are in leadership positions, have, right? So Natalie, I have a follow-up question about that.
Mhm.
So I do think the best leaders, when they're developing people, they make space for those they're developing to have success experiences when they take on new and hard things. And so the idea of servant leadership has always really appealed to me. Then I realized in my own life, in my own leadership journey, that when I removed all of the barriers, or when I made it easy for people to take on some of the challenges that they wanted to take on, and I wanted them to take on for their growth, that when I cleared the path for them, that sometimes I inhibited their growth for clearing their own path. Because
Mhm.
as you become more senior and more senior, right, you have to figure out how to clear your own path. You can't always rely on someone else doing it for you. So I was thinking you've also experienced that, like
Mhm.
people growing at the next level where you thought, oh, in order to have a leadership position, you've got to learn some of these skills. So
Mhm.
can you talk to us a little bit about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I certainly can. And what I would say is I have different tactics depending on the level of the leader that I'm working with or the team member. Entry level leaders, first time leaders, they're just learning, they're very excited in the role, uh, instilling confidence, giving feedback, coaching, and mentoring. Feedback that's either, here's the opportunity, here's where you did great. making sure that they've got right priorities, making sure our communication is clear, really clearing the way to make the path easy for them to succeed. They need some early wins. As we move along through the career and leaders are promoted and they start to have their own skill set and they know what they're confident in, they know how to speak to a room, they know what projects they're leading, there comes a time in that process where it's not going to serve me or them to spoon feed the success to them. Failure has been my fastest way to success. And I don't know if I call it fast, but failure, I learn more from failing than I do
Right.
from winning. It is the times where I have stood in front of 200 people and said something that I later thought, oh, why did I do that? And just beat myself up because I gave wrong information, or I did something that wasn't accurate, or I sent a report that had data that wasn't checked, or who knows. I've had my share of that. But that is how I got better. And so there comes a point where I have a relationship with a leader. And in fact, not long before this call, I was just speaking with a senior vice president on this very topic. And I said, would you like some guidance? Would you like some suggestions from me? I'm happy to share what I think, but this is yours. I want you to win or fail. It's yours. It's yours. And so I asked them where they want me involved in the process. And most of the time it is, I think I got it. I'll come back to you if I need anything later. And I'm very open about the path I've taken to get to where I'm at, and about the failures and about my passions. And so they know they can come to me with anything. I'm an open book. And so depending on the level of where the leader is, that dictates my level of involvement to help them develop their way to success.
Natalie, these experiences you're describing as you're talking, it's causing me to remember conversations you and I have had about different people and how you're trying to develop them, and not just the people who report directly to you or report at a very senior level. You are hyper observant of where people are in their career and what they need to learn in order to progress. And you make investments. You make investments of your own time. You sometimes get coaches for people. You develop programs that help people on a broader scale develop. What are some of the things that you've noticed, like the themes of what kind of attitudes and behaviors and approaches work for people to bring them the opportunities they want to have, and what sorts of attitudes and behaviors kind of stop them in their tracks? You see their potential, but they just don't have the breakthroughs that you know are possible. What do you see?
Yeah.
And you can start in either place.
This is a really, really great question. And over the course of my career, I've worked with thousands of people. And there is one theme that I see at every stage of the game, at every company of the game. And one thing I wish all team members, all people would really understand is that opportunity is everywhere. Opportunity exists always. My job, your job, anyone listening to this, I think that team members come along the way and they get stuck in their lane and they only can see this is the job that I'm in, and they wait for something to happen. They get stuck there. And what I noticed is that they become kind of like, I'll just do the bare minimum. They get so lost in that repetition of, this is my job, this is what I'm going to do. And they don't if they took the blinders off to see that opportunity exists everywhere. There was a time when I was many years ago, company announced there's no raises this year. Nobody's going to get a pay raise. And I thought to myself, that's not true for me. That is not going to be my experience. 3 months later, I got a pay raise. And I remember that all the time because my experience, I am creating my experience. And I do that by showing up and doing the best that I can in the job I have today, being the best in the job that I have today, maybe going the extra mile on a couple little tasks. It doesn't take that much time to just add on to over deliver on some of the key initiatives that you're working on. It doesn't take that much time, but the perception that you're sending out to the others in the organization, it's vast and wide. I sit in leadership meetings all the time, daily, weekly, and we are discussing new projects that are coming up, things that need to be changed in the business. And people will ask, who should we give this project to? Who do you think is ready for this? Those discussions are happening at every organization. And so if you are, knowing that there's opportunity available and you take a little bit of action to take control of your career, somebody's going to come open that door. I promise you. I promise you. That's what I wish everyone would know.
Right.
Yeah.
And when they open the door, you need to be prepared to go through that door.
That's right. You say yes. Even if you think you might fail, you say yes. Even if it's not something you're like, oh, I don't know that I really want to do that. Do it anyway. Life is short. Do it anyway. Get the experience.
So this experience that you had in an environment where no raise, like we have to hold the money on our costs, right? And you understood from the business perspective what the intention was, that we need to hold our costs down. And so we're just going to deliver the message that there are no raises. We're going to set expectations. And then in your mind, you said, that's not going to be my story. I want to hear more about that, because it's not just, it's not going to be my story. It's, I know there's money. I know, right? Like there's something else going on. There's some other part of that story that you told yourself that said, anyway, I don't want to make it up. I want you to tell us what some of the rest of that story is.
I would say what the rest of that story is that, as a result of me working with a mentor and building my confidence in what I knew was possible for me, I would not have having somebody reflect back to me, here's what's possible, here's what I see in you, and me taking the action to continue to get that mentorship, my confidence was built up. And so I knew if I continue to do the best at this job that I had, and this was very early in my career, so my job was pretty clear cut what I needed to do. I just continued to do that every day, and I got to know the people operating the elevators. I got to know the security guards. I got to know people around the organization, and I knew their name, and I had relationships with all these people. And when this opportunity came up, was something that I would never have thought about. My name came up because, I had been following the tasks of following this leader and taking the guidance that she had. So I think, I owe a lot to all the mentors that I've had over my career. A lot to them.
And it's interesting, isn't it, that money follows the perceived value of the contribution you're making. Natalie is so valuable that we want to make sure that she is being paid for the value she's creating. And that value has to be a perceived value. It can't just be what you're doing in the closet. It has to become more known. Some of our clients talk to us about this quite frequently, about the value they're providing and how that value remains unseen. And they tell us that they don't want to be the chest pounders. They don't want to be like, me Tarzan, I do all this wonderful stuff. They recoil from others who who do that, who come across kind of braggy. Can you share your perception on that? How do you become known without
Mhm.
being a spotlight hog?
That's actually a really good question, and one nobody's ever asked me. And now I'm wondering, have I ever been a spotlight hog? That's that's awesome. Um, for me, I just did what I felt was right for me, meaning I was not, I was probably recoiling from the spotlight more than my leader wanted me in the spotlight. I was more kind of in the back, just doing the work, showing up early, doing the work, meeting people, doing the work that I needed to do very, very well. And that was it. And the rest of it sort of happened for me. I will say this, if there are leaders, so I lead, I have currently 10 direct reports. I know out of those 10 direct reports who is excelling and who isn't excelling. They don't need to tell me. I already know who is adding value and who has opportunity to add more value. And it shows in their work and it shows in those results. And so if leaders can't answer that question about their team, then I think we need to ask ourselves a different question. And what do we need to do to help those leaders promote their teams? And maybe it's part of the succession planning process. Maybe
Hmm.
maybe there's opportunity there. I don't know what that answer is, but for me, I can say as a leader, I know who's excelling, I know who has opportunity, and they don't need to tell me.
I think some of the people who are listening to this will say, gosh, I wish Natalie were my leader, because my leader is not that perceptive. And you're right. We do have a lot of work to do with leaders to recognize and develop. And we are also trying to work with the employees of those leaders to elevate their game and make it impossible for their leaders not to see the value they're bringing. Natalie, one of the first projects you and I worked on was a succession planning project for a previous organization. And you and your team had done a lot of work ahead of your engagement with me to identify the up and comers across the organization in every department. And when you and I talked, we talked about what needed to happen to help functional leaders transition to business leaders, which at the highest level of organization, we have to be business leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had great success with that program. And I'd really like you to share sort of where your head was or what you were thinking about as you and your team were engaging in that succession planning effort. A lot of companies do succession planning as a checkbox exercise. You were not doing it as a checkbox exercise. You were actually trying to develop, to extend your leadership pool, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you can talk to us about that experience, what you were thinking about, what you were hoping to accomplish, and maybe some about what we were able to accomplish through that program, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Linda. I think succession planning is vital for every organization. It is a tool not only for leaders going through the process, especially newer leaders. That is a great educational process for them. It is also valuable for the business. It mitigates risks. You get team member engagement, team member development. You become nimble in the organization because you think about people you wouldn't normally think about. So it's just all around. I think it's something that should be embedded in every aspect, in every organization. It's for me, it's currently a year-long process. It's not a one and done. We're doing this all year long. It's built into our leadership model. But at the time, Linda, when I go back to the time we worked together and we were identifying leaders, we were going through a lot of leaders. And I will say for myself and my team at the time, we were all learning a lot of this together about ratings and how we should think about this, and what level, how far down do we go, and how far down do we go with leaders. And I had a fantastic team. We came together and looked at the entire organization, probably about 3,000 total people in that organization. Leadership was, a couple hundred. And as you look through and go through and look at those who had high potential, those that are ready to move on to promotion, that brought out a whole new level of leaders. And what that did is it provided names were all of a sudden being shared that, hey, this person did this person does this person could do this, like clear across the organization. And those discussions were happening very openly with senior leaders across the organization. It created opportunity for people to go in a career path similar to mine that they wouldn't even have thought of. And it just created opportunity for the leaders who are doing the rating and having the discussions and, thinking about it, putting a lot of thought into it. They learned so much. They learned so much about their teams. And when we got done with all of that, we came out with a list of names. These names should be going, we need to provide additional education for them. And that's where you came in, because we needed to level a certain group of leaders up. And they went through training with you and your team. And I still today hear from people on LinkedIn about how that has changed the trajectory of their careers. And I look at many of them from a distance and see the roles that they have today. It was a game changer. It was a game changer. We all learned a lot. My team, the leadership team, the individuals that went through that project, we learned so much, so much that it is now incorporated into everything that we do. In fact, I take it all the way down to entry-level leaders. And the reason that I do that, starting at the very entry level with leaders, what powerful skills for them to learn about rating and performance and giving feedback and having these discussions. And those are some hard discussions for those leaders, but it becomes the norm for them. And by the time they get higher up, they're masters at it, and they're always thinking about development. That's what I want it to be so natural that it's not okay, it's time of the year, we're going to do this, and we check the box. This is development that is embedded into everything that we do. People have a choice as to where they can work. There's millions of employers, there's millions of opportunities. And I want the really great top talent to work for me and the company that I'm at. And this is a way to keep people engaged, because they're always learning, they're always growing, there's opportunity. This is a secret. This is, to me, this is the secret to all of it. People are the product. And I stand on that.
That's great. For people who work in organizations and their organization is not as deliberate as you are about the growth and development of the individuals that you work with, what's your recommendation for those people? If they want to fundamentally change the trajectory of their careers, or accelerate their growth and development or opportunities for promotion, what advice would you give them?
I would, number one, ask them to take an inventory of the job that they're doing today. Are they doing it well? Are they performing everything well? Are they doing a great job? I would recommend, second, that they have an open conversation with their leader. Conversations with leaders should be a two-way street. This shouldn't be the leader saying, hey, I think you should go do this job. We are each responsible for our careers. And you've heard the saying, who you driving your own bus. Everybody's behind the wheel of their own career. So they should have that conversation with their leader. If that conversation doesn't seem to go anywhere, or it falls flat, or you don't feel like anything happens with that, share it with your peers. Get a mentor. I cannot stress that enough. Mentor programs are another thing that I'm a big fan of. I love mentorship programs, but get a mentor. You don't have to have a formal mentorship program. When I found my mentor, I said, if I could have 30 minutes of your time each month, I will come with the agenda. I will do all the work. All I need is 30 minutes of your time. And I took the action to do that, and then I followed the action of the mentor. And I've done that throughout my career. So open the dialogue, do an inventory first of the role that you're in today. If there's an opportunity for you to be better, fix it. Talk to your leader, get a mentor. And if you feel like you're at, and sometimes the answer might be there's other opportunities out there in the world. Opportunity is everywhere, and we're each responsible for our own career.
Thank you for that. Thank you. We could talk to you all day, but we won't.
I know. I wish we had 5 hours on this podcast, and maybe we just need to have you back soon. But thank you so much for your time, Natalie, and for your insights. You are truly a brilliant leader. And I know you're going to get a whole bunch of new applicants for positions you might have open at bswift now. And to our listeners, we invite you to appreciate the transformational experiences that have brought you to this point in your leadership journey. Until next time. At Peridot Circle, we facilitate the growth and transformation of individuals, leaders, and emerging leaders of fast-growing, tech-savvy organizations. If any of our listeners are interested in learning more about our approach to leadership coaching at Peridot Circle Consulting and how we can help transform how you show up at work, book a consult with us online at peridotcircleconsulting.com. We would love to help you and your organization achieve more than ever before.